What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves. Hi, welcome to another great episode of the All Around. I am your gracious host, Dr. Anthony, and we have some amazing topics that we're going to discuss tonight. So without any further ado, we're going to bring out producer Marc Lee. Ida will not be with us. She's in travel, and she is enjoying herself and doing the dang on thing. So it will just be myself and Marc at this present point in time. So how are you?
I'm doing good. Looks like you are doing well and everything. I know that today folks have taken the day off. They were celebrating what some people might call, and I've given it a new title, National Lost Day and everything along those lines, because it's actually Columbus Day, but he was actually lost. So a lot of people are actually doing a better idea and calling it National Indigenous Day, which is definitely an important thing to do, because we definitely need to celebrate those that were here before we were here and all along those lines. But before that, it was Columbus Day, or as I like to call it, National Lost Day, where we celebrated a man that was totally lost. So.
Definitely. So I don't celebrate certain holidays, and this is one of those holidays that I don't celebrate. I didn't even know it was Columbus Day, to be honest with you. I was at work. I didn't even look at the calendar. A friend of mine was like, "We're off today. It's a holiday." I was like, "Oh, okay, well, enjoy your day." So yeah, just another day to me,
Just another day at the office, another day.
Another day in the office. Just another day in the office. Definitely.
I understand that. I can definitely understand that whole notion of it just being another day. Yeah, like I said, I had gotten off so myself, but I know that I think the post office was closed because it is a federal holiday, and I think definitely a number of schools and other institutions were closed as well. But definitely give honor to those that were here before us, not necessarily the lost man and all along those lines, but definitely the Indian tribes or the various First Nations do deserve to get some recognition and all along those lines. So I don't have any problem.
Oh, definitely. They can have that, but as far as me, I'm good. I don't celebrate the pagan holidays like that or whatever. And another holiday that I really don't celebrate is Thanksgiving. A lot of people are like, "Oh, but you're celebrating, being with your family and this, that, and the other." But you don't understand the origins of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was built on, it was built on a massacre, and indigenous people died. They lost their lives. They were forced to eat with the pilgrims. It's not like they wanted to eat with the pilgrims. They were forced to eat with them after they came over, gave them smallpox and gave them all types of diseases, killed them with their weaponry and, things like that or whatever. So that's another holiday that that is not near and dear to my heart is, Thanksgiving. I don't celebrate Thanksgiving at all. Although I'm going to enjoy the time off, I just celebrate it.
You can enjoy the time off, maybe enjoy a couple of football games, enjoy the camaraderie with your family and all along those lines. I'm glad you mentioned what happened with the natives and everything earlier on today on the news show. And I am not saying that it was justified, but definitely a lot of people have been talking about what happened there in Israel with the Hamas attack and all along those lines. And while I will not justify the attack, I do think that we have to understand the reasons why the attack took place and also understand that there could have been some injustices that need to be dealt with in that particular area. But you got some folks that have blind allegiance to Israel and to the Israeli cause. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, because I do think that
the thing about it is, the war with those two countries, it's been happening, before we were born, while we were born, in our lifetime, past our lifetime, and things like that. And, this war started back in the biblical days. These were two brothers, and these are the descendants of two brothers who are at war. And so, my thing is, as the United States, we should have never entered those countries in the first place. We should have stayed out of, their dealings and their business and let them handle their own. But, this happened way back with President George W. Bush, not George, what is it, not the father, but the son. And,
Right.
you know, they basically told him to stay out of those countries and he didn't listen. You know, oh, I'm a Texan, I can do this and I can do that and I can do whatever I want. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's one of the places that we had no business, you know, dipping our nose into, you know, those countries. And there's a lot of other places that we can discuss, but we're discussing this for this particular reason, you know. And to say that, you know, people are siding with Israel, you know, people, you know, they side with whoever they want. You know, whatever you believe in is what you believe in. I'm not siding with anybody because at the end of the day, you know, we are Americans, and though that is a fight that we should not be in. We should not have engaged. We should have not invaded. We should have not done any of that stuff. We should have let those people do what they do and handle their own business and try to come to some type of diplomacy on their own. But we already see that the diplomacy is not going to happen. Israel wants to take over. Israel wants to rule those people because they have this superior thinking, like they're superior and this is superior being, and you know, things like that or whatever. So you know, that's why we're in the state that we're in, just like Russia and Ukraine. Russia wants Ukraine for, you know, whatever reasons, and you know, things like that or whatever. So as far as, you know, the United States is concerned, I don't think our troops need to be over there. I don't think we need to be over there because those people have done some crazy things to our people. Those people have killed enough Americans. Those people have caused us enough bloodshed.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I can definitely understand a lot of that sentiment and everything as I understand it. And like I said, I don't have all the facts and all along those lines, but I can only imagine what you would feel like if you were in a certain country. And while I do understand that it goes back to the biblical days, but if you were in a certain country and you had the lay of the land for yourself, and then there was an entire world war that took place, and then they just kind of like decided that they would kind of ship everybody to your land and create a country in that land where you might be a little upset. So like I said, I do understand where folks might be upset because it's my understanding that Israel was created after World War II when they were trying to find a place to send some of the folks that had been victims of the Holocaust and all along those lines and everything. So I can only imagine it'd be like if somebody had land, it'd be almost kind of like what we were talking about with the Native Americans, where somebody is by themselves and having peace in their own country, and then somebody says, "Hey, y'all don't need that land. We're gonna have this land, and we're gonna use it for an entire country." I can understand where folks might be just a little bit perturbed about that.
I mean, I get it, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, these are the same people that come over here and take upon those racist antics, just like the white supremacy, and you know, support that white supremacist attitude, and you know, that are very racist towards blacks. But they don't understand that, you know, the same racism that they used to receive, that blacks receive, that we're still receiving, was the same racism that was, you know, spewed against them and their people and things like that or whatever. You know, these are the same people that don't really step out and say anything about, you know, Black Lives Matter. These were the same people that came out against Nick Cannon saying that he offended them. Damn, you know, if he offended you, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't our fault. We wasn't over there throwing your people in the incinerator. But you know, the same racism that we experience every day, you say nothing against, but you perpetuate the way racism and things like that. So I have no feelings towards, you know, what's going on in those countries. I have no dealings or ever desire to ever even be in those countries, and you know, things like that or whatever. So you know, as I said before, you know, whatever happens in those countries happens in those countries. And I just think Americans need to keep our nose out of it. And I don't think my black tax dollars need to go over there to support anything that they got going on. Because if my black tax dollars is good enough to support you, then you know, you need to step aside with the racism. And that's within, you know, all of them. I don't believe that my black tax dollars that I pay should, you know, be sent to Ukraine, you know. But you know, and that's a, you know, another conversation or whatever that we kind of touched upon last week when we talked about politics and the Republicans, you know. And it just baffles me how people want to, you know, continue to vote against their own best interests and vote Republican when these people, you know, with dark money cause the Supreme Court justices to vote against American students having their student loans, you know, forgiven and things like that or whatever, because they said it was unconstitutional. So is it constitutional for my black tax dollars to be sent over to Ukraine? Is it constitutional for my black tax dollars to be sent over to Israel? But it's not constitutional for my black dollars to help and support another black student, another black patron, another black citizen of the United States. So that's unconstitutional. So, you know, my thing thing is, why people are running around talking about I'm Republican, I'm this, I'm that, but you're voting against your own best interest. You're voting against women's own best interest. You're voting against Black people own best interest. Because the thing about it, even with like universal health care, the reason why they did not want universal health care because it was going to cover Black people. You know what I'm saying? So they can save the antics for whatever, but I'm still against my Black tax dollars going over and supporting anybody until they start supporting people at home.
I understand that. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of people, when they think about the Middle East, they think about the fact that it is very much considered holy land from a lot of different religions, and not just Christianity, but also Islam and Judaism. And I think it is also seen as a holy place by even some religions outside of those three mainstream religions and all along those lines. But that being said, hey, and I didn't know we'd get to the conversation, but I thought I'd just bring it up to you.
Oh no.
I saw an article there about there being a decline in religious participation,
But
particularly
hold on
among our
before
youth.
you go to the religious participation. I mean, if we want to take it to the biblical and things like that or whatever, these are some of the most racist people there is. So how can you say you serve a God, an omnipotent God and a loving God, when you're racist towards your fellow man and you can't get along with your fellow neighbor, and you're really racist towards Black people, although some of y'all skin are darker than ours and things like that or whatever, you're really racist towards Black people. So how can you say on one hand that you love your God, whichever God that you pray to, because we don't pray to white Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So whichever God that you pray to, how can you say you love your God and you're doing the work of your God and you're still being racist towards your fellow man and racist towards your neighbor? That's not God-like. That's not heavenly-like. That's not, whatever, because a lot of it is a lot of BS behind, the religion and things like that. And religion has, when it comes to, being religious and things like that, people have, had a major decline. People say that they're not religious anymore, but they're more spiritual. They believe in a higher being. They believe in a higher power. And so that's the spirituality of it, and a lot of people are, seeking I don't want to say justice, but seeking religion for themselves and trying, understanding what is being written and what has been stated in the Bible. Because if we look at it historically, the white people used the Bible to control Black people. They were only allowed to read certain books of the Bible. So it was like, mind games and mindsets, you know what I'm saying? So and again, when they did a lot of things, a lot of racist things towards Black people and killing Black people, I'm doing this in the name of Jesus. I'm doing that. So your Jesus calls you to, be racist. Your Jesus calls you to be, be, having strife and animosity towards Black people just because their skin color is different, and you didn't like their skin color. Your Jesus calls you to, hate Black women. I'm talking about the white women now. Calls you to hate Black women because they were more beautiful than you are. That's your Jesus, because we don't pray to that white Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So they can kick rocks with the foolishness when it comes to like religion, because like I tell people all the time, a white man cannot preach to me. He cannot say anything to me. He may be called and he may be spiritual for somebody, but he's not spiritual for me. And that's just me.
No, I understand that. I can definitely understand that. But I do remember, and like I said, I've never been overly active in the church, but do have family members in the church. And I remember that there was a time when we used to actually have a church that met at Haytime. They had a very active Sunday school with a lot of children that were being taught at that particular Sunday school over there at Christ Central. But I do know that there are some churches where that is not as much, where they don't have as many kids and teenagers actively involved in Sunday school, because Sunday school was a way that we got some of the kids to learn about the Bible and about some of the other religious, because not just the Bible. I think they were also having Sunday schools that taught the Quran if you are Jewish faith, or taught the Quran if you are of Islamic faith, and all along those lines. Actually, I think it's the Torah. I said Quran, but I meant Torah. I think that's the Jewish book, and all along those lines and everything. But I was just wondering, because I think there's definitely the young people that are the ones that are turning away from the church, and part of it might be that they don't feel that the church is dealing with some of the issues that they are concerned about, whether that's bullying, whether that's some of the LGBTQI rights, whether that's Black Lives Matter rights, or that's just trying to find something to eat or someplace to live, because sometimes they might be dealing with some of those struggles, the very real struggles in their own houses, and they might even turn to the church. Because I've had some friends of mine that have turned to the church and have sometimes got a cold shoulder when they have turned to the
and,
church.
and and that's the thing. You can't fault the church because the church is a building. The church is not the entity at hand. The entity at hand is the pastor and the person that you're dealing with. You have to fault that person. And that's why I tell people all the time, when they say come as you are, you're coming as to worship, coming into the mind, the body, the spirit, the soul, and things like that or whatever. But you're going to get fed in the word. But when you're dealing with a person who has hurt you, the church has not hurt you. That person has hurt you. So you have to be able to, understand and separate between the two. You have to understand that the pastor is man. You can't look at the man as if he's a deity, as if he's a god. You cannot place him on that pedestal. And then when you get hurt by the man, then you're saying that, oh, the church did this, the church did that. No, the church did not do anything. It was the person that you were dealing with who dealt you the cards that you were dealt. So you have to deal with that person and not blame the whole entity and the whole body of the church, because you're part of the church. When you go to the building, you're part of the church body. You're part of the congregation. That's what forms the church. And people have to understand that. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to, like dealing with, like religion and the church and things. Yes, you do go to the church for guidance, but you're also given the fact that you have a brain. You're also given the fact that you're supposed to read and seek knowledge for yourself and ask God to give you that knowledge. Ask God to give you the discernment so that you can understand the word and so that you can get things on your own instead of, falling prey and waiting for the man to explain things to you and for the man to do things. And then when you seek the man and the man hurts you, then you have a problem with the whole body of the church. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Apparently, that was
You
part
know.
of what was going on, even in Israel and everything. I was going to get to another
Mhm.
issue as well, because apparently some people were upset because they felt that they had a contract with that particular army to defend and inform them, and now I guess they are feeling that that particular military did not live up to this contract that they felt that they were part of, and all along those lines. As I was seeing an article that was saying that there were some people even in Israel that were feeling that they did not get the support from the government that they expected to get. And we even see that sometimes here in the United States. But speaking of that, and even changing the topic slightly and all along those lines, I had some good news for those that are have been following strikes and all along those lines, because it just came down. Apparently, Dr. Anthony recently, like within the last several minutes. So we get to break this right here on Pod TV and everything. But the Hollywood Writers Union has ratified a 3-year labor contract. So apparently they are under a new contract, and they have gone ahead and done this and approved a new 3-year contract with major studios as of today. 5 months. It took them 5 months after that strike and everything, but it looks like the writers have come up with something that they can agree with and that they can like. I know there's been a lot of people concerned about AI and a number of other reasons, including pay and other things. So that at least as of now, they feel that they have a victory some 5 months later. And apparently 99% of the roughly 80,500 votes supported the deal, which provides pay raises, always some good things, some
Mhm.
protections around the use of artificial intelligence and other gains. So it does look like they have at least had a victory as of this particular time and everything.
Well, I
But
mean,
I know that
that's another issue with Republicans. They bring people in to bust unions. They want union busting because when a people stand as a body and as an entity, they're strong in numbers. But they want to bring in people to bust unions, and we can happen in our back door in DC. That's why Michelle Rhee was brought in, because they brought her in saying that she was a union buster and she wanted to get rid of like veteran teachers and things like that or whatever, saying that it shouldn't matter, first come first serve or last hire first fire, and things like that or whatever. So not only did it happen there, but it also happened in Chicago and other places where they had mostly minority teachers and things of that nature. So it's not just with the writers union. It's across the board in every union. That's why people are unionized, and they don't understand the significance of Labor Day. And that's why Labor Day was started to celebrate people that are working and giving them that credit and their credence and things like that or whatever. So a lot of people, and like I said again, it all boils down to for the life of me, I don't understand why people vote Republican.
I don't
Because
get it either, but
because the Republicans had, they have done nothing but, try to separate the people, try to union bust, try to, keep people in poverty. Inflation is going up. They want to keep you broke. They want to keep you not making any money. They don't want you to have any raises. I don't think we've had, like a significant federal raise in some time. It went from like $7 to like $10 to what, like $12 or something like that. But you had individual states that are raising the minimum wage, because people who can raise a family of four or a family of three on $7.85 an hour or $7.65 an hour. That's just virtually impossible. You have people, on the picket lines. You have people that are below poverty, and things like that. And then you have the audacity to say that they can't get entitlement programs such as welfare, food stamps, and TANF and things like that. How are those people supposed to feed their children? How are they supposed to make it? They don't want you to make it. But again, the poorest white man, if they think that they're voting against something that's going to help black people, they will vote against their own best interests and still remain poor to say that they're doing something to hurt black people. So for me, for the life of me, I still don't understand why these people have been voted consistently into office and consistently re-voted and re-elected after they have screwed you over so many times. So yeah.
I hear you on that. Apparently, there's two other strikes that are still ongoing. The United Auto Workers are on strike, and apparently they're not that far from you in Philadelphia. The
Mhm.
transit officers are going to go on strike as well. So they just actually did a strike in that area, and they voted to go on strike this past Friday and everything. So definitely, folks are trying to find ways to have some money and some better conditions, because definitely there are a number of things in that regard. I was going to get to something I know you said we were going to talk
Mhm.
about, which is education and all along those lines. I was on, as I've said before, and I don't hide the fact, I get around by mass transit and all along those facts. And there was a group of kids recently, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago. The driver did have to make a sharp turn, I mean, like a sudden stop on the brake, which of course caused the bus to lunge and everything. And when the bus lunged, a group of kids were upset. I mean, there was probably a group of adults that were upset, and they called her that infamous B word and everything. She did not take kindly to that. She stopped the bus and basically kicked them off the bus. And then they were very adamant in some of their protests. I remember them running up to the bus and being very boisterous about the fact that they wanted to kind of attack the bus, even though she pulled off and got off safely. So that was just an example of sometimes how our kids can be kind of in these kind of situations and not know how to do conflict resolution and all along those lines. Like I said, the bus driver did make a sharp stop, and I do authorize that and everything, or notice that was what she did. But I also saw the way that these kids acted, and ironically, I saw them yesterday, and I'm thinking that they're part of the gang kids that exist in Durham. That's right, we do have gang kids in Durham as well, because I even saw some zipping in and out with their bicycles and all along that line and all in that kind of space. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about how we can deal with these kind of kids that may not have good home training?
Well, the problem is just the parents. You got to deal with the parents. You have to put pressure on the parents, because at the end of the day, like I tell people all the time, I'm not arguing with you or your child. So at the end of the day, whatever you say and whatever you do with your child is what you do with your child, because home training is conflict resolution. Home training, it starts in the home. It starts with the parent. The mother is the first teacher, and all of that starts in the home. Parents are the very first teachers. So whatever they learn in the home, if there's no discipline there, it's going to carry over to the school, because we know children who have discipline. We know children who has come from certain home structures. It shows in the classroom. You know what I'm saying? So again, for me as being an educator, I'm not arguing with you and your child. Whatever you and your child want to do, that's what y'all want to do, because at the end of the day, all I can do is ask your child to do something. You have to make your child do something. And for them to be on a public transportation, anything could have happened. This woman could have averted a car crash. This
Mm-hmm.
woman could have averted somebody hitting the bus, and saving the children's lives, and things like that or whatever. And you blatantly on the bus disrespecting a woman who's old enough to be your grandmother, who's old enough to be your mother, and things like that, calling her out of her name. But this is stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that people don't want to address, and that people feel like we should be subjected to this. We don't want to be subjected to the ignorance of your child, because your child is an extension of you. We don't want that. You know what I'm saying? So
I hear
it
you. I
starts
hear
in
you
the
loud and
home.
clear. I hear you loud and clear. And one of the arguments that I hear people make all the time is this notion of people being afraid. I mean, not you, because you're definitely very much adamant and very much of a solid and upstanding citizen and everything. But I do know that people will say that they won't speak out against kids or won't speak out against whomever because they're afraid of the consequences. Both one, if the kids might be carrying guns and or weapons, and two, if they might get some backlash from the community because they called them out and all in that space. So that's
What
something.
backlash is already happening? The kids are already carrying the weapons. They're already bringing the stuff to school. Because if that's the case, we wouldn't have the mass shootings. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? We wouldn't have the gang fights. We wouldn't have this and we wouldn't have that. And again, all of this starts in the community and is brought into the school. I don't go to work to be in a combat zone. I don't go to work to be, battling, if I'm going to, make it out, for the past, like 2.5, 3 years of me being in, working in high school, moving from elementary, middle, and going into high school, the word lockdown has been a trigger for me because
Yep.
we have been on lockdown because of things that has happened into the community that is happening into the community that is brought into the school that has nothing to do with us. So you have to discipline your child because at the end of the day, we can't discipline your child. All we can do is just call you, and then you get mad when we call you saying don't call you. They're your problem while they're in school. They're my problem when they come home. But you can't have your cake and eat it too, talking about why you didn't say nothing, why you didn't do this. When we do say something, you had a problem with it. When we don't
Mhm.
say something, you have a problem with it. So we're basically damned if we do and we damned if we don't. But at the end of the day, Dr. Anthony is not arguing with you, and Dr. Anthony is not arguing with your child, because at the end of the day, after 9 months in May, June, whenever we get out of school, I don't have to deal with you and your child ever again. I'm there for one reason only, and that's to impart information and give your child an education. Now, it's up to your child if that child receives that education. It's up to them if they receive that education. But I'm not about to force anything. I can't make your child go home and do homework. I can't make your child go home and study. I can't make sure your child do anything except for what is done in that classroom. All I can do is ask. If they sit there and they choose not to do it, that's on them. I can't make them do it. And then you get angry when we call you or we email you or we send you a text message telling me, B, don't call me, don't do this, don't do that, and things like that or whatever. So, like I said, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Is either gonna be one or the other. But then you have the sheer audacity to ask people to pray for your child, to donate to your child, to march for your child when they go out and get killed in the street. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not doing any of that. I'm not praying for them. I'm not donating to them. I'm not marching for them. I'm not doing any of that because you have the power to change your child. You can change your child. Your child lives with you every day. So, you're afraid to tell your child something. What are we supposed to do? We have no leverage when it comes to your child. That is your child. We're just the educator. We're there to impart information and make sure that they get what they're supposed to get. We're not there for no other reason. We're not there for any other thing. That now they want teachers to be counselors. Although I have social work psychology background and I do work in mental health, they want teachers to be counselors. So we have to do social emotional trainings and restorative justice with the children. We have to do all this, but at the end of the day, we get no support from the parents, none
Yeah.
whatsoever. So all of the accountability has been placed on the teachers, the educators, and the school, but the parents, they have no responsibility, no accountability. The students, no responsibility, no accountability. It's all the educators. But in this equation, it's 2/3. The parents and the child make up 2/3. The teacher and the school make up 1/3.
Yeah.
So
No. No.
you have the upper hand, and you have the power to make that change. But again, like I said, I'm not arguing with you and your child. that's
No.
that's between you and your child and whatever else. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, and y'all do what y'all supposed to do, because at the end of the day, when I go home, I don't see you and I don't see your child.
No, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I was curious about, even when it comes to education, and Rick Rosner, who is on one of the other shows, and actually he's a former Mensa person, and I think, well, actually, I guess once you're in Mensa, you're in Mensa for life, and all along those lines and everything. But he is definitely a Mensa individual, and he was talking about the fact that apparently the SAT, and it was either him or Jimmy, it was one of those, was talking about the notion of the SAT being on the way out, and I'm even hearing that Common Core is on the way out as well. So I just wanted your thoughts about that. And is that a good thing that standardized testing may be on the way out? And if it is on the way out, how are we going to qualify what kids are learning and all along those lines? Because that was part of what was supposed to be the purpose of that, was to give people a sense of what of how far the student had gone and developed in their education, and whether they needed to move on to the next level and all along those lines. But it does seem like because of the pandemic, the SAT and the ACT are totally on the way out, and who knows, maybe even standardized testing is being threatened as well, both partially by AI, partially by other things as well. But as a educator, would you be glad to see that go? Because I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like teachers teaching to the test and everything. So
Well, we don't teach to the test. We teach critical thinking skills. The problem is we don't get no reinforcement from home. When you don't get no reinforcement from home, your child is going to suffer because at the end of the day, your child is with you more than they are with me. I see students for an hour and a half for a day. We have block schedule, an hour and a half for a day. So in that hour and a half, I'm supposed to do a whole year's worth of work or here, whatever, a lifetime worth of work in that hour and a half is virtually impossible. So education, like I said, education starts at conception. It starts before birth. It starts in the home. So when the child is adequately prepared at home, that makes the educator's job, pretty easy or whatever. But as far as, the SAT and ACT, we already know that test is culturally biased anyway. And certain things were, certain cultures were saying that because of the way it was written that certain people could not pass the test, but we surpass anything and we pass it regardless. But and it was proven that when tests were written in vernacular, the AAV vernacular, white people couldn't pass the test. So we already know that ACT and SAT is culturally biased anyway. But as far as standardized testing was concerned, standardized testing was implemented to test the student knowledge base to see where that the teacher had to work with them. But when like I said, you always got to follow the money. When when the white people lost their jobs in the recession and things like that or whatever, they needed a place to come and they needed a place to work, and education was the place for them to work. So they came up with Common Core. They came up with all these other programs and all this other stuff where these white people was making all this money and stuff like that. And even with Teach for America, you go and get trained for 2 weeks, 4 weeks in the summer, and then you teach a certain amount of years and you get your student loans dismissed and things like that. But that was applicable to like mostly white people, and minority people didn't really get in on that. You had your token blacks, 1, 2 here, 3, 4 there or whatever, but it wasn't enough to make a dent where educators like myself, couldn't receive no benefits like that or whatever. So, I just tell people to follow the money. But as far as standardized tests is concerned, we need standardized tests because we have to gauge where your children are. We have to know, what we're teaching and where we need to go with your child. Now, should it be used against the educator? No, it should not be used against the educator, because at the end of the day, like I said, the variables are too great and too grand when it comes to, things like that. We can't go home. Hey, cousin, we can't go home with the child to make sure the child is doing, hey, sister, we can't go home to make sure the child is, adequately prepared in terms of their homework, in terms of reading, and things like that. I remember when I was in elementary, and I tell this story all the time. I had students, I had like 111 students, if I'm not mistaken, who I was teaching in ELA because they changed classes. We were standardized, so they changed departmentalized. So they switched classes. So of my 111 students, only 13 of them didn't make gains. Why they did not make gains? Because they did not do what I asked them to do in terms of preparation, going home, practicing, doing the warm-ups and things like that or whatever. Everything that I laid out for them to do, they didn't do that stuff. So therefore they did not make gains. So am I to blame that they didn't make gains? No, I cannot be blamed because I gave them the blueprint. I told them what to do. It was up to the parent to make sure it got enforced. And I'll never forget this. I had another little boy in 5th grade. I contacted the mom. I was like, can we meet? Can you help me help your child? He's a struggling reader. I need him to, do certain things. She never met with me. But the second that she wanted me to write a letter of recommendation, which I declined, I'm not writing because I'm not putting my name on it, for him to get in some type of school so he can play football, she wanted that. But, my thing is the priorities are different. But she would pull him out of school a week or 2 at a time to go play football. But you couldn't help me support your child in reading and, things like that or whatever. And then when he got to middle school, he was like, oh, Dr. Anthony, he emailed me. He told me, Dr. Anthony, you were right about, everything that you said or whatever. So, my thing is you're faulting the educator, but you're not doing what you're supposed to do as the parent. You're not putting in the time with your child. These are your children. I didn't have the children. You laid down for them. I didn't. So these are the things that you're supposed to do as a parent with your child. You can't fault the educational system, saying that the educational system is faulty and it's poor because you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a parent. You didn't work with your child. And I tell people all the time, coming into the educational system, children are supposed to have a vocabulary word built about between 2,000 to 5,000 words by the time they hit kindergarten. And a lot of our children are not even adequately prepared and cannot really hold conversations and cannot formulate a sentence because the parents did not talk to them. The parents did not read to them. The parents did not engage with them. So you want me to take something that you did not do with your child and get them on grade level in one academic year, which is virtually impossible because there is still no support at home. And I was telling you this when I was on another show that, one of the persons on there got upset when I was talking about, parents and, sending their children to school not potty trained. So who fault is it? Your child been with you for the first 3 years of your life, for their life. So you send your child to school not potty trained, saying that it's the teacher's responsibility to train the child, potty train the child, or is it your responsibility? Because I already told people, although I'm certified in pre-K through 12th grade, I will not do that. I'm not wiping no child.
No, I don't think you should have to do that at all and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a problem there.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Anthony, just out of curiosity, one of the things I've been hearing a lot of parents say, and like I said, I don't have any kids of my own, but I do have my 2 nephews. And I've been hearing a lot of parents that, for whatever reasons, are frustrated by the school system and they are wanting to do homeschooling. And I don't know that everyone wants to do homeschooling is actually able to do homeschooling and is even actually able to even handle homeschooling. But I'm just wondering, because apparently there is a push for a number of people to go into this homeschooling lane and everything.
Go ahead and homeschool your child. You know what I'm saying? Because your child is probably one of the ones that you make excuses for on an everyday basis. Oh, my child wouldn't do that. My child doesn't act like that. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like you want to homeschool your child, baby, go ahead. We ain't fighting you. We're not fighting you. Go ahead and homeschool your child. But at the end of the day, I've had some homeschool children who came to public ed and couldn't function in public ed. As again, another 5th grader who came to public education who was homeschooled and things like that. The child couldn't read. The child couldn't do anything but sat at home and, was doing God knows what or whatever. But the parents so-called claim we homeschooled our child. And I'm just like, but your child can't read. If you're homeschooling your child and you're providing one-on-one instruction to your child should be at least more advanced than the children that, he's engrossed with inside of the classroom. Child could not read, could barely write his name, could not recognize the alphabets, could not recognize sight words and things like that or whatever, but you homeschooled your child. So he stayed in my class for all of 2 weeks or whatever, and they pulled him back out to homeschool him. So baby, go right ahead, homeschool your child. If you think that you can do this job better than I can, honey, go right ahead. We are not fighting you.
That's what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but apparently that is a popular thing. I was actually just reading an article that was
it is.
These magazines, and it's saying that it's like there are 2 million children homeschooled in the U.S. for reasons ranging from social health issues to fears of school safety to Black families.
But the thing about it
don't
is,
want to have the whitewashed curricula, because I do think that.
But the thing about it is,
legitimate reason.
But that's the thing. When they say homeschool, home and hospital is still a public education teacher goes out to the home and hospital and teach your child in the public education sector. So they need to break it down, saying homeschool for parents who want to homeschool their children, not homeschool where you're still receiving educational instruction from a certified teacher. Because I have a friend who does home and hospital right now, and she has children that she go out and she educate in the evenings who are in the hospital, who cannot be in the school, who are at home, who has like health conditions, other conditions, and they are homeschooled. So when we talk about homeschool, we have to say, are we homeschooling through the public educational system, or are we homeschooling through the parents doing what they want to do? Because truth be told, they're actually supposed to follow the curriculum of the LEA. And the LEA is a local education agency who provides the curriculum for the homeschool curriculum. And a lot of people are like, we're world travelers, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're just basically just randomly teaching their child whatever. Do I have a problem with it? I don't care, because it's not my child. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but sorry, I guess the question I've got to ask about that is, I've seen different people do different homeschooling. I know that there was a young lady that I dated many years ago, and she actually had her kids going to a Christian school and all along those lines. And nothing wrong with but yeah, but there might be some arguments. Because part of the argument with some homeschooling is that it can be um, definitely different centered. Because some people will homeschool even if they have a certain kind of criteria or a certain platform that
But
they
a Christian
want to
school is
teach
not
their
homeschool.
kids.
They're still in a structured environment. They
Right.
may have less people in the classroom or whatever, but it's still a structured environment, and they're following a curriculum. They're not following the homeschool curriculum. People got to understand there is a homeschool curriculum that you're supposed to follow if you're
Right.
educating your child in the home. Your child is supposed to receive a certain amount of education per day. Your child is supposed to do a certain amount of things per day. That's why when they try to bring them back into public education, a lot of those children are not integrated back into public education because the parent think that they know everything and they did not follow the process of the homeschooling properly. So, when we say homeschool, you have to, that's why I said you have to define what you mean by homeschool, because homeschool meaning that if a child is sick, he's going to receive homeschool education. He's going to receive that from a public education teacher. So homeschool, if they're homeschooling their child as the parent, that's something different from going to a Christian school, from going to a charter school, and from going to all these other schools. And like I tell parents all the time, regardless of where your child are, you still need to know the ins and outs of the school to make sure that your child is being adequately prepared for what is to come. So your child, you want to take away all these, tests, and you want to take homework away. You want to take all these, reinforcements and these interventions that we utilize to help your child, but then you want us to, like try to work magic to get your child in college. You want us to work magic to try to get your child in, like some of these other schools. We can't work magic. We can't do that. Like I've had parents to come and ask me to write letters of recommendation for their children. I'm not putting my name on no letter of recommendation for your child. And I know that your child is inadequately prepared and your child can't handle the curriculum and your child can't handle this. I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
you
apparently,
can make me do it or
yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
um,
Apparently it's very unregulated, and that's part of the problem. Because one gentleman
but it's
was very
not unregulated. The parents are wanting to do what they want to do. Like I said, they have to check in with their LEA. That's a local educational agency and things like that. But everybody wants to run around talking about they want to homeschool, but you don't even know the ins and the outs of the homeschool, because you are supposed to follow a structured curriculum. Homeschool has a structured curriculum. And like I said, whatever LEA, whatever school district that you live in, that's what LEA that you're supposed to follow, and that's where you're supposed to, like engage with your child. It's not a made up curriculum where you're traveling and you're doing all this other stuff and things like that. Yes, you can take field trips, and I'm not saying deny your child of exploring and experience, but if you're going to properly homeschool your child, you need to follow the steps of properly homeschooling your child. And there was another I'm in this other group, and I wanted to bring this up. So the parent said that the little 5-year-old child was left unattended, and she couldn't go to recess, and she couldn't do this because she had behavior problems, or she had some type of challenges inside of the classroom. So the parent got on social media, and she was blaming the school, the teachers, and the assistant principal, the principal, and things like that, saying my child was left unattended, my child was not being watched. No, your child was not being left unattended. The way public education is set up right now, those classrooms are supposed to be like 22 to 1, 15 to 1. There are 30 and 40 little kids in those classrooms. Now, if your child took it upon herself to walk out of that classroom and to go where she wasn't supposed to go, that was something that was against your child. It wasn't against the teacher. And like I tell people all the time, we cannot stop your child. We cannot put a hand on the shoulder. We cannot touch your child. So if your child walk out of that room and don't do what we ask them to do, then that's on your child, regardless if the child is 5 years old or if the child is 15 years old. They made that conscientious effort in that decision to go and do what they wanted to do. So she said the little girl was sent to the principal's office, and so the assistant principal asked her to sit on the couch. So the assistant principal and the principal was in the office. The little girl got up, walked out of the office, and went to the playground and played on the playground anyway. And so she was like, my child was left unattended. Nobody was watching my child. No, they were watching your child. They told your child that she had to sit in the office while the other kids go out and play, because that was taken away from her because of her behavior. And not one time did the parent address the child's behavior. Not one time did she say that my child was, inappropriate for not listening to the educators and the adults in the room. And I gave her this example. I said, so what if there's an active shooter on the school campus, and your child was given a directive by the teacher to sit down, be quiet, put her head between her legs, and do not move. But your child gets up and go out the door and walk out, and something happened to your child. who you gonna blame? You're gonna blame the educator because you said that, the educator was not watching your child, and somebody, they left your child unattended, and like you blame the educators in this scenario. You know what I'm saying? So people got to understand, if your child is unruly and don't have that discipline and is not listening to adults, that's a home issue. It started at home. Your child did not listen to you in the home. So we can't make your child do anything. All we can do is ask your child to do something, and it's up to them and their own volition. If they want to, do what we ask them to do, we can't do that. And then again, when we try to have conversations with the parent about their child and about their, oh, my baby doesn't act like that, my baby doesn't do this, my baby doesn't do this at home. Well, your baby is, acting away in school. So, people were like, oh, we need cameras in school. When I worked in the prison system, we had cameras in the classroom. We actually need cameras in the classroom, so we can shut some of these parents down about their child. People are picking on their children, and their child don't act like this. No, you need to see exactly what your child is doing when you are away, and when your child is at school. So that's just the
And I
bottom
hear
line.
what I hear what you're saying. And like I said, the gentleman whose article I was reading and everything.
And the thing about it is, parents, they want to fault the educators, and they want to say the educator is not doing this, but you have not one time disciplined your child, and you have not one time said that my child is a behavior problem. And my suggestion to the parent was, get her some therapy. She has oppositional defiant behavior to authority, and it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse if you're not addressing the issues with your child and the concerns that you're seeing that your child is displaying, those red flags right now. It's only going to get worse the older she gets, because she's going to think that is acceptable behavior, and that is not acceptable behavior. You have to discipline your child, and like I said, discipline starts in the home. Teaching starts in the home. Education starts in the home. Learning starts in the home. All of this starts in the home with you. You set the foundation, and you set the tone of how your child is going to behave and how your child is going to act in school. So if your child is not used to being told what to do by an adult, or following directives from you, and following directions from you, and being sassy and talking back to you, guess what's going to happen when that child go to the public education system? Is going to be the same thing. The child is going to be defiant. The child is not going to listen. The child is not going to do what we ask them to do. And are we going to put up a fight with your child? No, we're not going to put up a fight with your child, because at the end of the day, that's between you and your child. And and also what she stated was the assistant principal wrote a referral on the child, and the principal wrote a referral on the child, and I want to say the teacher wrote a referral on the child, and that's 3 referrals that your child has acquired, within a whole day of not doing what they asked them to do. So guess what the school system is doing? The school system is creating a paper trail against your child. So the school system is going to put forth a meeting, a sit meeting, to test your child for special education for behavior, because yes, your child can go to special education for behavior. So once your child get labeled as a behavior problem, and is tagged with that stigma, that stigmatism or whatever, then that is going to be another issue for your child. And parents don't understand that, and they still want to blame the educational system. But when you offer no support, and you give us no backing and no standing to stand on, this is all we can do. All we can do is write what happens, and write a referral, because again, we cannot technically discipline your child, because y'all have a problem with them writing lines. That's, y'all consider that as a child abuse. You have a problem with them sitting off to themselves. They can't sit to themselves. You have a problem with them being in timeout. So, that's technically child abuse. So you have a problem with everything that the school is putting forth. So, you probably one of those parents that may need to homeschool your child, because you're the only one that can deal with your child and their behavior, because it's clearly evident that your child does not follow, your lead. Your child does not listen, because it's carrying over into the classroom. Because a 5-year-old being that disrespectful and that defiant, it shouldn't be. So these are learned behaviors. These are things that she learned at home. These are things that she acquired at home. And I'm quite sure she was one of those parents that thought when her child was, out there dancing and popping and singing all those rap songs and all those R&B songs and all those other songs, she thought it was cute. When her child said a curse word, she thought it was cute. Oh, look at my baby. Oh, look at my baby. My baby did this. My baby did that. But it ain't going to be cute in a minute. When your child is, embarrassing you like she did at the school, it's not going to be cute when your child is embarrassing you in public education conversation, and when your child is embarrassing you in a restaurant after you have told your child what to do, it's not going to be cute then. But you're setting the tone for your child, and you wonder why the children are acting the way that they're acting. They're being disrespectful to adults, and they're not taking what the adults are saying, because this is the things that they're doing with you. Your child is disrespectful to you. Your child talk back to you. So this is something that they learned inside of the home. So how can you expect the person who spends less than 8 hours a day with your child to make a change in your child's behavior if you're not doing it at home? Mark?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard how much I was talking about before I apparently got cut off and everything. But one of the things I was bringing up with this notion of some of the miseducation in some of the homeschools and all along those lines. And I was also asking, because apparently in England it's becoming a major conversation around whether we should be teaching kids about consent and even teaching sex ed in the school, because apparently there's a young lady that is very adamant that we need to be teaching about consent there in the UK, and a lot of the kids can learn the wrong aspects of sexual education from the street. So she was actually saying that we need to teach variety of things even in that
So
space. So
that's
I don't
what
know if
TV in
you
the
have.
background. No, but the thing about it is, I had that when I was in elementary. We started in third or fourth grade or whatever when we talked about sex education, and those types of conversations are supposed to take place with the parents. I mean, not the parents, but in the health classes, and also the nurses completes those type of conversations with the children. But they're absolutely right. The we do need to have these conversations with the children. I remember there was an article that came out some years ago where there was a school in Texas. It was supposed to be a Christian school, but the children were supposed to be practicing no sex, abstinence, and things like that. But there was a outbreak of STDs and things like that or whatever. But the people are in denial that the children are having sex. But you had an outbreak of the STDs at the school. So we have to talk about, we have to engage the children in conversation, and we have to do these things with the child in terms of like educating them on appropriate touching, inappropriate touching. But it also starts in the home. Parents have to talk to their children about people appropriately touching them and inappropriately touching them, and things of that, and things of that nature. Because I tell people all the time, as an educator, we can't touch your child. Although when I was in elementary school, the little kids, they wanted to give you hugs and things like that or whatever. But I normally just give fist bumps and like dap it up and things of that nature or whatever. But we cannot touch your child. And you have to have those conversations. And I understand that a lot of parents don't want to have those courageous conversations with their children, but you have to have those courageous conversations with your child, because people are out here preying on your child. I'm sorry, my TV is going in the background, I apologize. They're preying on your children. They're predators, and things like that or whatever. And so your child needs to know what is an appropriate touch and what is an inappropriate touch. Because I mean, the same UK is the same UK that said that children at 12 years old can give age of consent to have sex with adults. So this is the same UK that put that out there or whatever. So the age of consent with children is actually getting younger and younger. So parents, you need to have this conversation not only with your little girls but with your little boys, because you have more predators out there now who are after little boys and not just after little girls. So yes, we have to teach from a parental standpoint. We have to teach that from a parental standpoint and from an educator standpoint. But it should start early. If they can teach about LGBTQ in elementary, they can teach about inappropriate touching and sexual relations and all of the other stuff inside of the classroom as well. Our children are more mature and more apt to understand things if you just have a conversation with your child and talk to your child. I mean, I remember a few years ago, a colleague of mine, when we worked at the same school, she was telling me that the kids were into hentai. And I was like, what's hentai? And she was like, oh, it's Japanese porn. I was like, what? I was like, what do they know about, porn? She was like, the kids say that they watch Japanese porn. They're watching porn. And this is starting at at an early age. And I had a child who I worked with in the mental health capacity. She was in third grade, and she was sexualizing herself in the third grade. And so, that's some of the things that we talked about and we worked on with her is, building self-esteem and, telling her what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. So you have to have these conversations because you don't want them to learn it from the street. If they're learning it from the street, then it's going to be a problem and they're going to learn the wrong way. So as the parent and as the adult and as the educator and as the mental health specialist, yes, you need to have these conversations with your children. They need to understand what is appropriate touching, what is inappropriate touching, who's supposed to touch you. You're not supposed to sit on people's laps. You're not supposed to do this. People are not supposed to, squeeze you when they hug. People are not supposed to, run their hands across your breast or, touch your butt or anything like that. These are things that you should have, things that you should have conversations with your child about, and it's not just, just a dry face or a blanket conversation. You need to have in-depth conversations with your children about certain things because children are experiencing things. Children are being bullied because they're not sexually active. Children are being bullied because they're not LGBTQ or in that category. Children are being bullied just because they're being bullied. So as a parent, you have to have those conversations, those courageous conversations with your children. Mark?
No, no doubt. You got to have those courageous conversations, everything. I know we're winding down. Got Maxine's show coming up at 7 o'clock and all along those lines. But I guess the other question I had really quickly to ask you, and I know that this could be a whole conversation with me, you, and Ida. There are a number of folks that are wondering about the school to prison pipeline and whether it actually exists. I personally think it is a real thing and definitely exists and
No, it's
everything.
definitely a real thing. I talked about this years ago. The school to prison pipeline is a real thing. I mean, when as a matter of fact, I just gave you an example of the little girl when they're doing the paper trail with the little girl. They're going to put her in special ed because of her behavior and things like that. But this is a lot of stuff that happens with our children. And you think it's cute when your child is not being disciplined at home and when your child is cursing, because I've seen a lot of videos where children are cursing their parents out and they're having conversations and they're cursing adults out. But at the end of the day, that's not a cute situation. That's a sad situation because you're setting your child up for failure. You're setting your child up to be in that school to prison pipeline. And that's something that is, starting at the home. Yes, we as educators are doing some of the, putting it out there on children. But at the same time, the parents are, just a stronger proponent of the school to prison pipeline because of what they're doing at home and not teaching their children proper conversation, proper English, and how to handle themselves around adults and things like that or whatever. So yes, it is a very real thing, and like I said, it doesn't just fall on the educator; it falls on the parent too. Because if you have a child who's 3, 4, 5 years old and their first language is cursing, how do you think they're going to respond? They're going to curse. They're going to curse the adult out. They're going to curse the teacher out. They're not going to listen to an authoritative figure. They're going to be oppositional and defiant. They're not going to follow directions. They're going to do what they want to do. And those are just called patterns of behavior. And that's learned behavior because you allowed your child to learn that. Because I tell you all the time that, certain learned behaviors carry over from the house into the school system. And that's one of the things that carries over from the house into the school system. And one of the other things that I expressed to the parent in the group was, all we can do is call you and call the police. So once you decline to come to the school and handle your child, the next step is we call the police. And we put the police in your life, and then they're gonna put CPS in your life and things like that. Because at the end of the day, we can't touch your child. We can't do that. We can ask your child to do something, but we can't make your child do anything. The only person that can make your child do something is you. So yes, that school to prison pipeline is perpetuated by parents, and it is in some instances perpetuated by the school, because the parent is just as much at fault as the school is. Because again, learning starts in the home, and if the first language is profanity and cursing, that's what the child is going to use. That's what the child is going to do.
Last thing, and I know we can definitely make a whole show about this as well, is you got a lot of people that are also, when they think about education, concerned about this notion of what is fair to teach. I actually think we should teach all aspects of history, warts and all, but you got some people, including some of those Republicans that you love so dearly and everything, that they only want to teach a certain aspect of history and all along those lines, and they don't want to cover all of the aspects of history. But that's, like I said, that could be a whole nother show, because that whole notion of CRT, critical race theory, being something that is bad, when all it really is us teaching our history, both the good and the bad, and all along those lines. But definitely, that's a whole other conversation that we can have on a future show.
Definitely. I mean, CRT, like I told some other people, if your child has ever had a black educator, your child is already getting CRT. Your child is already experiencing critical race theory because we're giving your child knowledge based off of our knowledge, off of our experience. So your child is already getting that. We already discussed that with your child. But the problem is when it comes to like integration and all that stuff, this only happened in like recent years. This happened in what, the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s. So that they have a problem with their parents being put in those spotlights, and you have to address and let them know that Mamo and Pawpaw was racist and they did this and they did that. Because my thing is, if our children are old enough to experience it, your child is old enough to learn about it. And with that being said, we're gonna call that a day. The clock on the wall says that's all, because Mark got another show that he has to produce. And again, we'll touch upon critical race theory and more, the state of education on the next show. And hopefully Miss Ida will be in to join us. But if not, she can catch us on the next show and things like that. So make sure you click like, share, and tune in for some more hot topics. And we'll talk to you next Monday. Deuces. The clock on the wall says that's all.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves.